So to introduce myself as a first step, hello everyone. My name is Kayla Isabel and I'm the Executive Director at Startup Canada. Welcome to everyone participating in our series of boot camps in preparation for the Canadian Export Challenge program. In September, we will have a national pitch competition event and series of regional virtual accelerators where all startups and scale-ups have a chance to win $25,000 and $100,000 in in-kind support. And over the next couple of months, and as you've seen promoted on Startup Canada's channels and with our various partners, we've been doing a series of virtual boot camps and virtual accelerators to help our community go global. It's more important than ever to understand the changing export environment and really getting a solid understanding of how to go global. So today we're focusing on getting digital, upping your e-commerce game, and focusing really on a Q&A and giving everybody a chance to ask questions and engage with our panelists. So today, a few quick housekeeping items. We will have the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So if everybody sees a brief Q&A, I see a few of you are already actually asking questions. So great to see that already. Because we did ask for questions ahead of time, we'll be prioritizing those Q&A functions at the very end. And then we'll be running through the questions that were distributed ahead of time, scheduled into the agenda. So we'll squeeze in as much as possible into today's session to make sure that we're getting as much out of our expert panels as possible. You're also able to continue using the chat function, saying hello, making connections, and I will be providing detailed resources in that chat function on the side of all of your computers. So I would like to now take this opportunity to introduce our wonderful panelists. And I see we've got Armin online, so we're making great progress on the technical difficulties. So we have three wonderful panelists today. Our partnerships from Startup Canada's perspective are incredibly important, and these virtual accelerators and boot camps would not be possible without our co-presenting partners, the Trade Commissioner Service, EDC, and UPS, and our programming led by Google. The Canadian Export Challenge this year is completely powered by Google programs. So thrilled to have these panelists here with us today. To kick things off, I'll introduce Armin Norozi, who's the Regional VP of Strategic Alliances at EDC. Armin has over 20 years of experience in the financial industry, and his role at EDC has really brought him to work closely with Canadian businesses and entrepreneurs. So all of our audience members that we have today. In his current role, he's working to bring a full suite of solutions and supports to Canadian companies through government and private sector partners such as BDC and Startup Canada. So welcome, Armin. We're also joined by Michael Mancini, who is the Deputy Director of Multi-Industry Sectors at the Trade Commissioner Service. Michael is a Trade Commissioner and has been with the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service for over 20 years. He is the Deputy Director responsible for e-commerce, intellectual property, and Canadian wine, beer, and spirits. So lucky Michael. He also has extensive experience in public sector marketing and communication. So lots of great insights we're going to learn from Michael today. Lastly, but not least, Tristan Lee is the SMB marketer at Google Canada. Tristan is focused on helping small and medium-sized businesses really embrace the power of digital, which is obviously now more important than ever, and help them to succeed within Canada and abroad. Prior to joining Google, Tristan spent 6 years in brand management at Procter & Gamble, working on some of P&G's most loved healthcare and beauty brands. With over 80 years of brand building under his belt, Tristan really prides himself on his capacity for empathy, entrepreneurial spirit, and track record of innovating to drive breakthrough results. And I can definitely attest to that spirit on your end, Tristan. So we are very grateful to have these wonderful panelists join us today. A note, I know a few of you have already asked questions. Today's session materials will be distributed from EDC and from the Trade Commissioner Service, and we will be giving a specific guide from the team at Google. We will not be sending through the full presentation on Google's end, but more of a targeted resource guide that will help you elevate your e-commerce and digital game. So a note to all of our attendees as well, we will be sending a follow-up email with all of these components, more information about the Canadian Export Challenge, and we'll be able to jump into questions after we have a few opening remarks and opening mini presentations from our speakers. So we'll kick things off with Armin. So let's see if technology's on our side, and passing things over to you if you'd like to share your screen and go into your presentation, Armin.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kayla, and thanks everyone for joining us. Very excited to be part of this panel, and hopefully technology will be on my side this time around. So Kayla, as Kayla said, I'm just going to provide a quick overview on some of the things we are seeing, a little bit about EDC, and then pass it on to Michael. So just quickly on the screen that you are seeing, as some of you might know, Export Development Canada, we are Canada's credit export agency, and we help Canadian companies go and grow internationally through our various solutions, our knowledge for in international markets. And given the COVID environment, the Government of Canada has also provided us with some domestic powers to help Canadian companies during this tough time that currently might be focused on domestic transactions and sales, but do need help today, and eventually they could also be looking to grow internationally. So moving on to kind of the e-commerce and the topic at hand, and I'll click to the next slide here. There we go. So as you all know, e-commerce is a significant part of how we all do business today and also consume today. And given the environment, this post-COVID environment, more Canadian companies are looking to adopt stronger online presence. And just from a stats perspective, we've had 143,000 small and medium-sized retail businesses in Canada, and only about 17% are selling online today. So there's obviously more opportunity here to enhance the e-commerce presence. And for those who are already online, selling online, is to actually improve the customer experience that they're providing online and reach more customers online. So some trends that we're seeing from an EDC perspective, in the B2C, business to consumer space, we continue to see partnerships between government, federal and provincial and private sectors. Many of you have heard about the Main Street businesses go digital. So the digital Main Street that is happening in the GTA area, Invest Ottawa, as an example, is again looking to help retailers take their business from a brick and mortar to an online perspective. So there's great programs like that out there. The private sector is also building connections to larger buyers for B2C companies. For example, Shopify has partnered up with Walmart for their merchants to sell through Walmart's third-party marketplace. That's starting in the US, but there's an opportunity for Canadian merchants as well. On the B2B side of things, business-to-business sales, we're seeing lots of great opportunities in the healthcare sector, remote work technology, and collaboration software, given these times. EDC's role in this space is really a big focus for us. Is sharing information and knowledge, either through EDC expertise or export help advisors, through blogs and webinars. We also, look, if you're selling businesses around the world, to businesses around the world, our credit insurance solution can protect you from non-payment from a business buyer. And that's a great way to increase your sales and also protect yourself, again, especially in a B2B environment. As e-commerce companies grow, we work with their financial institutions to provide more access to working capital. And we also support programs offered through e-commerce platforms like Shopify. For example, Shopify's merchant cash advance program that offers their merchants funds ranging from $200 all the way to $500,000, depending on the nature of their business. Along with other government partners like my colleague Michael from TCS and other government entities like BDC, we're also building strong ecosystems to support these companies through shipping and logistic marketplaces and search engine partners like Google. So given the focus of today's conversation, and as I just highlighted, the great opportunities that there are for Canadian businesses, EDC recently, and hopefully some of you have attended this webinar, recently hosted a webinar with our partners at Google and Shopify to share some useful tips on how to get started. This webinar is now available on demand, and some of the key points that were raised by the experts were the latest trends and consumer behaviors to keep an eye on, how to develop multi-channel business, ensuring a consistent consumer experience, how to develop your e-commerce strategy and find the right partners to help you achieve your omni-channel presence, and how to build your brand online. So Tristan and Michael will share more information on these points as part of their presentations and during our Q&A as well. The last slide for me is some of the resources that were shared to quickly highlight it for you during the webinar that I just mentioned. Again, this webinar is on demand, so you can access it and get a full list of all the resources. So many of these resources are free, easily accessible. Some of the ones that were mentioned, and I'm showing a sample here, is EDC blogs on a 7-part series to help your company thrive online. If people are interested in workshops and learning more about e-commerce, our partnership with Fit, there's a discount on it for people to look into that. Google's Shop Here starter kit, I know Tristan will speak more to that as well. And the Shopify articles on omni-channel strategy. So lots of really great tools and resources are available for you online. With that, I will stop and then pass it on to Michael to share his opening remarks.
Thank you. Everyone can hear me okay? Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. All right. Well, thank you very much for having me and for being on this panel. I really appreciate it. Exporting via e-commerce channels. Now, one of the first things, I'm sure I'm not the first to mention this, but COVID has changed a lot, obviously. And that includes how people are purchasing. And so as more shoppers move their consumption online, of course, businesses are forced to do the same in order to meet demand to stay afloat. As you can see here, breaking down the data by verticals tells a bit more of a story. The list on the right shows the most popular e-commerce product categories in April 2020 based on sales data of over 500,000 online stores worldwide. Now, the growth rate compares category sales in April to those in January and February of this year. I guess all this points to the importance, really, of having an omni-channel approach to e-commerce. Now, companies use an omni-channel model basically to bring online and offline together to allow customers to be in contact with a company through multiple channels. So the goal of the omni-channel approach really is frictionless shopping. The channels can include physical locations such as brick and mortar stores, FAQ web pages, social media, live web chats, mobile applications, and telephone communication. So an example of an omni-channel approach is a new service by General Motors where consumers can search, select, arrange financing, purchase a car over the internet, and have it delivered to their doorstep, well, by a GM dealer. So consumers now have multiple touch points with brands, online, mobile, and in store, and use all of them to inform their purchases. So don't think of your online and offline channels separately. The omni-channel approach really will drive more retailers to use cloud-based solutions as they enable companies to scale quickly, work from anywhere, and get real-time insights onto the various aspects of their business. Interesting study, recently Harvard Business Review looked at 46,000 shoppers to gauge what impact, if any, omni-channel retailing was having on their experience. And 7% shopped online exclusively, 20% were store-only shoppers, and 73% used multiple channels. So really, companies with an omni-channel retail strategy retain an average of 89% of their customers from channel to channel. Meanwhile, businesses with weak omni-channel integration retain somewhere around 33%. So quite a bit less. So what does this mean? Ultimately, as a result, companies really need to work hard to understand your customer. This means understanding demographics and shopping habits, but also what happens along the purchasing journey. So prioritize initiatives around the tools and features that your consumers are using. Personalization. Knowing your shoppers allows your company to provide you with the relevant personalized information and offers. This, of course, leads to increased visitor engagement and improved customer experience, as well as increased conversion rates, lead generation, and of course, e-commerce revenues, which is what it's all about. It's important to remember that no two markets are alike. E-commerce is at different stages of development around the world with regulatory requirements, financial and technology infrastructure, and adoption rates varying widely. So companies really have to keep the unique operating environment of each target market in mind when developing a strategy. Infrastructure, obviously to maximize things like your CRM and processing and payment and fulfillment systems, and to provide a cohesive customer experience, companies are going to need to invest. So, this basically means structuring your business around a holistic shopping experience, not separate channels. It also means ensuring that employees, that your company has the tools and the training needed to deliver the desired customer experience. Focus online, but maintain offline. Now, if you have a physical store, it still holds tremendous value, but digital tools can help to optimize that in-store experience. I think it's an important point. So this is a snapshot, essentially, of the challenges companies are going to face when selling abroad when it comes to e-commerce. It really is amazing to see how quickly things have changed in retail over the last 6 months. But the challenges essentially, I think, remain the same. Brands with the right people and processes and technologies in place will be the ones to grow their customer base. So these are the issues I think you will have to master. And this is really where the Trade Commissioner Service can also help. You need to answer questions like, do you have the capacity to scale to meet the demand that you'll have online? Depending on the market, will you fulfill orders yourself, hire a third party, or use fulfillment by Amazon? There isn't necessarily one right answer for anyone. You're going to have to try it out and see what works. Is your website written to target your customer in your target market? Is your marketing strategy right? Again, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. It's about iterating. Have you researched your customer that you're looking for? And have you, as a result, designed a solution to those problems? What platform have you chosen and why? It will all depend on the market that you've chosen to focus on, the product that you're delivering. And I can't stress this point more, is have you secured any trademarks in your target market before you make a move there? You'll really need to ensure that your IP is protected and that you will be prepared to enforce those rights. As I said, this is all where the Trade Commissioner Service can help. A little bit about the Trade Commissioner Service for those who don't know. Last year, we served just under 16,000 companies, which is a 2% increase from the previous year. We facilitated over 1,100 commercial agreements valued at over $7.8 billion, with a further 1,700 agreements currently being pursued. We have a funding program called Can Export, and it provided last year over $22 million in funding to over 600 SMEs in 2019, and a lot of those were e-commerce companies, so I encourage you to take a look at that. The funding basically helps Canadian companies export their product or service to international markets and It covers up to 75% of eligible costs for projects to a maximum of $75,000. And a lot of the activities that are covered are marketing activities. So I encourage your company to take a look at that. At the end of the day, TCS clients earn, I love this stat here, if you don't mind me bragging a little bit. TCS clients earn about 20% more in value, export to about 25% more markets, and export 11% more product varieties than companies that don't use the TCS. And every dollar spent by the TCS results in $26 in increased exports. Essentially, what we can do is help your company prepare for international markets. We can assess your market potential in those markets, help find qualified contacts, and resolve business problems. So since 2019, of course, we've been looking to pivot towards e-commerce. And in terms of our services, essentially 4 things. We help Canadian companies access online channels. We can increase the category of, we're aiming to increase the category of Canadian products on targeted platforms. We're looking to also, a lot of initiatives around building awareness of Canadian brands. You know, of course, being online is not enough. You've got to promote. And then probably most importantly, we can help Canadian companies address the key market intelligence gaps on the e-commerce ecosystem in key TCS markets. So we can help companies address the challenges related to payment options and logistics, applicable laws and regulations, and like I said, IP protection. I can't stress that more. On that, I will, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I will be happy to continue the conversation.
Fantastic. Thanks, Michael. So we're going to head over to Tristan, support by sharing my screen, and we'll kick things.
Thanks so much, Kayla. So as I get started, I just want to say first, thanks so much to Kayla and the team at Startup Canada for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here talking to all of you. I wanted to start and take you through some of the changes that we're seeing in consumer behavior at Google and what you can do with it as a business owner today and a company trying to get online in e-commerce. So if you flip to the next slide, Kayla. I think we all are feeling this, but the world has changed really dramatically, essentially overnight, from government restrictions to store closures and more. Things are looking a lot different these days than they were before. And I wish I had a crystal ball, like I think all of us do, to tell you what's next, but the truth is I don't, and the world will continue to be unpredictable. But there are some key facts as business owners that we can't ignore and we can use to help us evolve through this period of turbulence over the next number of months. If you flip to the next, I thought this was kind of fun. On a random month, April, you guys go out on a day during Christmas season annually. So it really just demonstrates the massive shift in behavior that we've seen in such a short period of time. And if you flip to the next, Kayla, we're seeing this change in some industries more drastically than others, retail being one of them. And we're calling this the great acceleration of e-commerce. This is something that's been happening for a long time. It's not new, it was just accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And in spite of that, I think Armin alluded to this earlier, only 1 in 5 retail businesses in Canada are selling online today, which I always find pretty astonishing. If you flip to the next, Kayla, in my time as a marketer, I think the one thing that becomes clearer and clearer for me is that everything starts with the consumer. And so I wanted to highlight for you a few of the changes that we've seen these past few months in the hopes that it'll help you as you evolve your business. So if you flip to the next, I think the first will come as no surprise and will really resonate. But more than ever, consumers are online and connecting online. At-home media consumption is growing dramatically, and it's really permeating all aspects of our lives today. You know, with everyone essentially living online these days, especially on their smartphones, and we know that that's not going to change, we need to adapt and be available where consumers are looking and searching for our products and brands. So if you flip to the next, we at Google spend a lot of time looking at search trends. And that's because they can be a really helpful proxy for consumer demand in the market. And so before COVID happened, I think we could all agree that there's nothing logically similar between all the products that I've got up on the screen. But since, I think it would also be no surprise that searches for all of these are up more than 1,000% or more year over year. And I think that really resonates, and you can see the connector between all of them as we live at home and our lives are so different than they were before. If you flip to the next, we are also seeing changing consumer behavior through search trends. So as a couple examples, in March, searches for curbside pickup and home delivery were up 70% and 100% respectively. And at that same time, more than 60% of Canadians were searching for what's open or closed near them. And so we're seeing those consumer behavior changes demonstrated through search as well. If you flip to the next, we're also seeing consumers adjusting their routines to truly be internet first as their routines and schedules change to meet the demands of how we're all so isolated now. So in a recent survey we did, we saw that 23% of shoppers went online to buy something that they usually would have bought in store before. And globally, searches for grocery delivery slots have grown 300%, which again is, I think, no surprise as we've all felt the shift in our own behavior. So if you flip to the last one that I wanted to highlight is that shopping local has gained a ton of traction. I've certainly felt this myself in my life. I've been trying a lot more to shop from local fruit markets, grocery stores, bookshops in my neighborhood and online. And I think what we're finding is that 50% of Canadians, half of Canadians, are claiming that they'd prefer to shop from a local small business versus a big box retailer, which is great news for all of us. And I think something that, again, won't change. So if you flip to the next, the behavior has changed at a really rapid rate. And what I would want you to take away from this is that it's not going to stop. Some things may go back to normal, whatever that will mean after this is all done, hopefully soon. But I really believe the shift to online business is only going to continue. We did a survey recently with Ipsos and saw that 33% of Canadian consumers are expecting to shop more online after COVID-19. Contactless payment methods, both online and in store, will continue to be more important. And in the future, we're seeing that 62% of Canadians say that free delivery will be even more important than it was previously. So all of these things are going to keep accelerating as we move forward. If you flip to the next, so the world is going online. And what I want to talk about today when we get into the panel discussion is what can you do? And at Google, we've been really focused on how we can make that transition from offline to online easier, because it can seem so daunting, but it really doesn't need to be. And so I'll highlight a number of resources that we have available. I'm thinking that maybe in the interest of time, I want to talk to them in some of the answers that I can give you in the questions that you've got, just so we have enough time for all of that. So maybe I'll take a pause and then I'll highlight each of the resources I was going to share as we talk through some of the questions that you sent through.
That sounds fantastic, Tristan. And my goodness, I think I can speak from all of our attendees that that was an incredible 30 minutes of resources talking about such varied topics and already some really practical advice that we've received from our panelists. So thank you for that jam-packed session. And as a reminder to all of our audience members today, we will be sending through the materials from TCS and EDC and a resource guide from Google. But if you want to, if this is already sparking your interest, we're going to be going and doing a deep dive during our Canadian Export Challenge in September with all of these wonderful partners. So planting that seed to join us in September for the Canadian Export Challenge. So what we'll do at the moment is we're going to now transition into the Q&A section. So many of you submitted questions ahead of time to our various panel speakers. So we're going to start off with an introductory question. And this is going to be answered, I think, by Google first. We'll have Tristan tackle this one. In a crowded e-commerce world, what are the top strategies and tactics that SMEs and startups should be using to be more visible to their customers? So Tristan, over to you on your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I get that it can be really, really daunting to get online and get set up in e-commerce. So I'd love to speak a bit to the journey online, knowing that it's fairly daunting because it's really our new normal. Years ago, as a kid in my neighborhood, I'd set up a lemonade stand on my street, put posters on telephone poles in my neighborhood. And what I would want to share with you is that this is no different than that. It's just that the status quo has changed. Being online is your means to be found now, because that's where consumers are looking for businesses and for brands that they want to shop instead of around their neighborhoods. It's also your means to communicate with your customers and grow your business. And I think that going online and being e-commerce enabled can mean a lot of different things. That might mean having a website that has an e-commerce store built into it, a social media profile, buying paid advertising online, having a YouTube channel. But it doesn't need to be all of those things. And in fact, I'd actually suggest that you don't try to do all of them at once, because it makes things so complex for you as a business owner when you're trying to do a whole host of other things to just keep your business running day in, day out. So I think a couple recommendations. First, choose a platform that's right for you and really try to start with the basics first. So, for a salon business, that might mean just offering online bookings. For an artist, that might mean just having a social media profile, where for a bookstore, that could mean being fully e-commerce enabled. And there's solutions, I think, to all of those that I can talk a bit about. For me, I would try to think first, where are consumers looking for you? Try to mirror their behavior and show up in the places that they're looking. So one tip I'll give you is setting up your business profile on Google as one of the first steps that you can take. So if you think about when you look in Google Maps for a restaurant that you love, and you see a profile that comes up that has reviews, it has photos, a menu maybe, even an option to book online, that is the business's business profile that they manage. It's basically your means to be found through search and maps, and it's the first thing that most consumers are going to see as they look for you online. So once you set it up, you can update your hours, have photos, reviews, information on things like curbside pickup for your business, and even now accept donations through GoFundMe and sell gift cards directly. So I think that's one piece. I will plug there that to set it up, you do need to get verified, and Digital Main Street, which is one of our partners, is a trusted verifier of the program, so they can instantly verify your profile on Google My Business if you check out their site. I think the second thing, and very related to e-commerce on this one, is you need a home base. As a store owner, your home base is your retail store. That's your flagship. And online, you really need that too. Whether that's a website, a YouTube channel, a social media account. Personally, I would recommend making it your website. And that's for a couple reasons. One, that allows you to learn about your customers by collecting your own data, where they're coming from, how much time they're spending on your site, what they're doing. And that can also allow you to remarket them after they've been on your site before. Second, it allows you to direct all your traffic to one single place, the same way that you would to your storefront on the street in your in-person business. And then last, the process of building a website was so daunting before. I am not a coder or an expert at all, but I can verify that it's so easy now with a lot of platforms that offer very templated solutions. So whether that's like Wix or Squarespace or Shopify to build a full e-commerce site, it's a lot easier than it was before. So I will leave you, I've said a few things, with a couple of the resources I mentioned before. One is we've built a program with Digital Main Street called Shop Here, powered by Google. It is essentially a no-cost, full-service program where businesses across Canada can register and get free support building their e-commerce website on Shopify. All the work is done for you. You basically show up with your products and your photos, and they manage all of it for you for free. And this year, we've pledged to help 50,000 businesses across the country get online. So one key resource you can check out, and there's more that I can share on that. So to quickly kind of recap, I'd say a couple things. It's way easier than you think. Choose a platform that's right for you and really start with the basics and think about where you as a consumer would be looking for brands that you want to find online. Make your website your flagship store. You need that in person. You also need that online. And register for Shop Here if you're looking to set up your e-commerce website to help you get started. So looking forward to chatting about this more, and I hope that's a little bit helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tristan. And I've included in the chat function more information about Digital Main Street and the Shop Here link. So wonderful CTA on that. Michael, over to you. Any other additional thoughts on the tactics and strategies to really put your customer first?
No, I mean, look, that was a really great answer, and I agree with everything Tristan said. Maybe what I can add is to really stress understanding who your customer is and their habits. You know, what do they like? Where are they? If you can understand the who, then you can get to the what and why of your e-commerce approach. So talk to your customers. Be able to answer, what problem am I solving for this particular customer? And I'd also say, define the customer problem and then the solution. Don't start by defining your problem. Your problem might be, I need to move 1,000 units by the end of the month. But the customer's problem is going to be something like, you know, I want a face cream that has all the ingredients of the $100 cream, but I want it for $20. And so you need to design a solution for that. Iterate, launch, test, and see what works and make changes as you go. Nobody ever starts off with the right mix, marketing mix. You know, their website is never right at the beginning. Jump in and get wet and really dirty, and you can fix it as you go. Geez, what else can I say? There's so much, but you know, Tristan covered a lot. You know, at the end of the day, what you want to do is be able to get the data that can help you understand how your customers are behaving, what they want, and how your product can stand out among the crowd.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. So now over to EDC for a particular question on strategy entering international markets. So we'll use one specific case study. We did receive a few specific examples in the questions received before. But if I'm a participant asking this question, how do I build a strategy for the UK market for an organic food company, if we look at that as a specific example? Armin, can you tell us a little bit more about how you can be really competitive internationally?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. It's a really good question you know, it's a great example of how we can put into strategy what both Tristan and Michael just shared in the previous question. And I really like Tristan's lemonade stand example, right? And that's where Michael and Tristan were saying about really knowing your customer, right? So back in the day when Tristan and I were kids with our lemonade stands, and I'm making myself younger by putting myself in the same category as Tristan. But, you know, we didn't know, right? Like maybe 1 out of 10, 2 out of 5 people like lemonade while they walk by our stands. Hopefully they walk by our stands. But in this kind of environment where you can have a digital online presence and really knowing your customer and knowing the market and seeing what part of that market your product can actually penetrate is so key. So there's 3 things I would highlight from an importance factor, right? First of all, as has been mentioned, is know your market. What is the UK consumer looking for? What are the key activities and who would be the main competitors? So doing your research, Michael said this many times, and so has Tristan, is doing your research on the opportunities in the market, but also how easy is it to do business in the UK? What are the rules and regulations to be aware of? As a second point, I would say take advantage of the existing trade agreements. We are currently in a BRIEX transition period. So until that is finalized, Canadian companies can still take advantage of the various preferences under the CETA agreement that's already in place and all other Canada-EU agreements, which will remain effective till December 2020. And finally, when it comes to selling food products internationally, it's important to meet the regulations of the country you're shipping your products to. So the Canada Food Inspection Agency, Canada Border Service Agency, CBSA, have developed handy step-by-step guides to help you understand the various rules and requirements per market. You can look up those specific guides for the UK or get in touch with EDC's expert help team who can help you navigate with some of these more specific questions to exactly what kind of product you as a organic food company is looking to sell to the UK. So I'm kind of staying at a broad level, not knowing the specific kind of product. But Michael, is there something else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess what I'd say, you know, obviously, you know, what we know is it's an organic food company looking to the UK. My colleagues, our colleagues at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada are actually doing a webinar July 23rd on exporting to the UK for food companies. So I'm going to try to find that link and share that. What I've been able to gather is that in the UK, most online food is bought through the online platforms of the major retail chains there, such as Ocado, Tesco, Asda, Carrefour Online. Amazon is active there as well, as is ASOS, Argos, Play.com, John Lewis, and Next. So most of these online retailers, they purchase their fresh products from importers, distributors, and wholesalers, much the same as they would in a conventional sort of way, right? what I can do is more than happy to facilitate a connection to our trade commissioners, our ag trade commissioners, closest to where you live, but also at their High Commission in the UK, and they may be able to provide more info on the UK agri-food market.
Fantastic. So we'll scope out that link and add it to the chat function. I've got my Google fingers going on that, so we'll try to get that in the chat function. So over to you, Tristan. I know this is a question that you get very, very often, but how can I make sure that my website or product shows up in the Google search? I know so many startups really struggle with ranking and sort of being on that top page and for it to show on that first page ideally. How do I optimize my website to do just that?
Yeah, that's such a good question. It's $1 million question. And I'll give you some kind of tips from my perspective. I'm not a complete expert in SEO, but I've got some thoughts I can share with you. So I wish I could give you like a click a button solution that's like a one-time thing that you do and you automatically end up at the top of Google search results, but unfortunately it doesn't work that way. SEO is something that you need to work at. It's a bit more of a slow burn and something that you do for a long period of time versus a once and done. So couple things. First of all, what it is. So SEO is search engine optimization. It's basically the process of optimizing your website to make it easier for customers to find you through search organically. And there's a number of ways you could do that, but a few of the top things that you look at are how you have as relevant content as possible on your site at all times. You place keywords throughout it that are important to your business. A big part of it now is organizing your website in a way that's comprehensive and logical so that it can be picked up by Google search, having short titles and headings, those sorts of things. So it's a pretty immersive process, and again, something that you should work at. I wouldn't approach it with the intent of, if I do all of these things right and I spend 100 hours on SEO, I will be the #1 hit on Google search, because there's so many factors that play into it. It can definitely help you improve your ranking, is something that you should work at, but I just wouldn't recommend spending all of your time solely on that as the only way to reach your customers. I will link in the chat just after I stop speaking, because I'm terrible at multitasking. There's a really good Google Webmaster course that gives kind of a solid overview of SEO basics. So I'll send that through to you. You can take a look at. There's also one on Digital Garage, one of our other training resources that's, I think, video-based, and I'll send you both of those to try out. And I think the last thing I'll say is the other thing you can do is consider paid advertising. And one of the great things about Google Ads, if you do consider it, is that you can spend however much you want, whether it's $30 or $1,000, and you pay for performance, so key results, whether that's website visits, phone calls, clicks, whatever it may be. So that's another way that you can ensure that you're featured in that top sort of ad section in search for customers that are looking for you. So I'll share through those two resources, and then let me know if you have any other questions, and I'm happy to answer them.
Will do. Thank you, Tristan. And hopefully with our package of information as well that we send to everybody, I know a few people are asking in our chat function, we will try to package all of these wonderful resources in one guide for you to make it as easy as possible. So Tristan has already talked about sort of skimming the surface of digital advertising. Do I invest? Do I not? Michael, over to you. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience going organic and what you would suggest about investing in digital advertising or not? And then we'll pass it back to Tristan for some additional commentary.
Well, I mean, I think organic content is critical, but I don't think it's going to be enough. It plays a really important role, but I think it's a pay-to-play world. And I think any e-commerce marketing strategy should include some form of paid advertising, Facebook advertising. Email marketing is critical. Google ads and Instagram. Again, it depends on who your customer is and how they behave and where they are. For example, if China's on your, if you're looking at China, it's like a completely different world, an unrecognizable e-commerce world to a typical North American or European. So your tactics are going to be really different. But what is the same is that paid does matter. Things in China like key opinion leaders and influencers are an absolute must in the Chinese market, whereas we might not sort of think of hiring an influencer or a key opinion leader as we're not. I think in North America we're not quite used to that idea yet. but you really need a KOL strategy in China, for example. So again, it really depends on the market that you're targeting.
Thanks, Michael. And Tristan, any final thoughts to add there?
Yeah, I guess I'll just share, agree with all of Michael's points that he made. I think that from the moment you are online, whether that's through your business profile on Google, your website, your social media account, you're marketing your business. And I think there are a lot of ways you can do it for free, but I really agree with Michael's point that at some point, to get the critical mass you're looking for, paid is certainly the way to go. I mentioned a couple of the free ways. So SEO, search engine optimization, is one. I love Michael's point on email. I think that's another really great one to nurture one-to-one relationships with your customers. I'll mention on that one, if you want to check out any providers, you can look at ones like HubSpot, MailChimp, Constant Contact. Those are all good ones that can help you set up your email marketing for the first time, and it's a very low-cost kind of solution. The other thing I wanted to share is that before you think about paid advertising, there's a couple things you really want to make sure you do to ensure that you're not wasting money. And what I mentioned before I love about Google Ads is that you're paying for results and you can spend whatever you want. So like I said, whether that's $50 or $5,000, you pay for tangible results like store visits, phone calls, website visits, or online sales. And so much of online advertising these days is automated. So if you don't put in the right goal, it's kind of like if you're driving a car with a GPS, but you've put in the wrong address. You're just not going to get what you want to build your business. So the two things I would suggest you do before you start paid. One is calculate the value of a customer to your business. So if you think about that, like if you're a store and you think about the average amount of money that somebody spends when they come into your store, that's something that you can factor into the average value of a customer over their lifetime. So that then you know what it's worth for you to acquire somebody new. You can then, based on that, also calculate like, what is it worth to get a website visit or a phone call? And then base your objectives for your marketing campaign off of that. So that's number one. You want to know how much people are worth to your business. Then second is, what is the goal? So this is really going to depend on your business. And Michael made some great points there too, that it's really not a one size fits all, and it's going to depend on your model. If you are a beauty brand, influencer strategy may be really important for you if you're thinking about high-end skincare products. But if you're a different type of business, it may be more important to have your online presence and do digital advertising through search or social, whatever it may be. So determine in the journey for your customer what drives to a sale or a purchase at the end of the day. If that is a phone call or a visit to your website or a visit in store, and then pay for your advertising to deliver those goals. And because you know the value of your customer, you can ensure that you're spending, for every dollar that you spend on advertising, you're getting a $2 return or more, or whatever it is that you set as your threshold. So kind of to quickly recap, know how much your customers are worth before you start advertising with them, and ensure you've got the right objective before you start doing it. And then when you do, it can be a really, really powerful tool to help you grow your business in Canada and abroad.
Fantastic. Really, really great insights across the board. And I'm sensitive of our time that we've got 10 minutes left, so we'll squeeze in as much additional content as we can. Next question over to you, Armin. So somebody from our audience is saying, I'm currently selling a product online in Canada, but looking to begin exporting to new markets. Is the clear next step here exporting to the US, or are there other countries that I should be expanding to first? Can you tell us a little bit about the direct versus indirect exporting options that people have?
Absolutely. Yeah, so, although the US remain Canada's biggest trading partner, and it is a natural step for Canadian businesses to dip their toes into exporting with the US, given our proximity, language, cultural similarities, it doesn't have to be the case. I mean, consider the example we talked about, the UK market, right? The important thing here is, what is the market size for your product? Not what is the size of the market, but specifically for your product. What is the economic, political environment? Are there free trade agreements in place? How accessible is the market for your product? So those are some key pieces to think about. If indeed you conclude the US is the best opportunity for your e-commerce at this time, the EDC, the Trade Commissioner Services, and also BDC can help you set up your step-by-step export plan and provide future market intelligence into the specific states or regions you're looking to penetrate in the US. One tool as an example I would suggest is, it might come at a later time as well from a question, is like the tariff finder. So a question that people typically have is like, what's the taxation of a state or different parts in the world, countries in the world? The Tariff Finder Canada, you just have to Google that or put it in your favorite search engine tool, and you will see that. That's a tool by TCS, EDC, and BDC, free of use. Also, I would say it's also very important from a first export market for you to consider maybe working with a distributor which can facilitate your entry in the new international market. This is what we consider as indirect exporting. You can leverage your existing Canadian supply chain to get your products and services integrated into an international supply chain that would bring your solutions to the international consumer. This is a good tactic when testing out new markets, as it helps you establish new connections and networks, but taking on fewer risks on your side and a better grasp of what's out there. The final piece I'd leave it before passing on to Michael is, take a look at your logistics companies out there, freight forwarders and so on, like the e-shippers, UPSs, Canada Posts of the world, to see how you can work with them to help you with the logistics component of your distribution. Some of these organizations have distribution centers around the world, and they can help with your e-commerce transactions, packaging, and sending it out so you can focus on your finding customers and your sales. Michael, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Armin. I very much agree with everything Armin has said. What I would say is that the U.S. is a really great first choice, and in many ways it's a lot easier. And actually, I think that I would say that there are enormous untapped opportunities in the U.S. via e-commerce, and I think a lot of companies haven't given the U.S. the look that I think it deserves. That said, depending on your product, to build upon what Armin was saying, it may be the EU or it may be Asia, and I guess the important point here is, and I think Tristan mentioned this, is to focus. You want to target and grow slowly. Choose one market and do it properly. Also limit the number of products that you're launching with. Start with one. And make sure that it's aligned with demand in that one market and build from there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. So we do have another question specific about shipping. And I'll take this question to myself actually over here, because we do have UPS as one of our co-presenting partners of the Canadian Export Challenge. We did have a number of questions come in about adapting shipping due to COVID-19, health and safety precautions, what it comes to in terms of returns. And we are actually developing a suite of webinars with the team at UPS, particularly for startups and scale-ups, on how to navigate the changing shipping needs. So stay tuned for more information there. But Paul from UPS will be doing a full presentation this September as a part of our CXC program, specifically on this. So if you are interested in getting more information about shipping, join us in September. So that's my quick answer there, not to the panelists. But one final question for our panelists. I know we've covered a tremendous amount of ground, and the additional resources we send after today's session will be helpful. But if you can sum up any additional resources, books, guides, anything else you think would be helpful for our audience today, what resources would you point us to? Tristan, let's start with you.
Sure, yeah. And thanks everyone so much for the great questions. I feel like this has been such a good discussion. It's even been great for me to listen in with Michael and Armin's answers too, and Kayla's as a recent addition to the panel. So a great question, yes. And I think I've highlighted a few of the things that I think are really helpful. Like I was saying before, at Google, my team and I have been focused on just how do we make your lives easier as you transition to online. And the one thing, in addition to the resource I'll share, that I'd want you to remember is that this isn't a COVID thing. This is something that will continue well beyond COVID-19. The transition to online has accelerated, but I don't think we'll be going back. There's a lot of things that we've become very comfortable with now, like picking up our groceries at stores, ordering online, and those sorts of things won't change. So the one resource I want to highlight is we've put together an online starter kit that was in the resources Armin shared on his slide earlier, and we can send out a short link to it as well that you can download. But we've basically tried to package up everything that we talked through today in some capacity or another with the basics of how you get set up online, including tips on setting up your e-commerce store, your digital marketing, SEO strategy, content strategy, all those sorts of things. So I will share that. And then if you have more questions, more than happy to answer them as follow-ups too. But hopefully that's helpful for you to get started in your online journey.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tristan. Armin, over to you for some final resources. Oh, I think you're muted, Armin.
There we go. Okay, thank you. So I guess, a lot of resources have been mentioned. I think, there are a couple of last pieces I would suggest is, please visit, the TCS site, please visit edc.ca. We have a lot of really good, I know it sounds biased from my side, but really good country information, in some situations, sector-specific information. So check those out. When it's specific to e-commerce, as Tristan said, Google, Shopify have some really great free tools out there for you to use. And the last piece I would suggest is, if you're in a specific sector, you typically would have an association. So reach out to some of those associations or those chambers, and they will have some really great insights and likely would have packaged some of these tools that are specific to your needs. So if you are in a specific sector, that would be my other advice.
Wonderful. Michael, over to you for some final thoughts. Oh, I believe we may be frozen with Michael at the moment. Michael, can you hear us?
Hi, sorry, my internet froze.
There we go. No problem. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say that the government of Canada just partnered with Shopify on something called Go Digital Canada. I'd encourage people to go take a look at that. I can try to include the link. I think the Shopify Compass resource section on their website is really thorough and really interesting, and I think is worth a look as well. And stay tuned for some more news on Shopify and the Trade Commissioner Service coming up hopefully in the next couple months.
Fantastic. So wrapping up right at 2 o'clock on the dot, thank you so much to our panelists for joining us today. I have to say I've learned a tremendous amount, and we've packed in a lot of information in a short period of time, but we will keep this conversation going with our Canadian Export Challenge in the fall. So really calling out to all of the attendees from today, if you enjoyed today's session, if you're interested in learning more, if you're looking to talk to somebody one-on-one, we're going to have individual one-on-one sessions. We're going to have growth lounges where you can talk to all of these various partners about your specific challenges or working through some of the ideas that you have, and overall breakout workshops, panels, and a number of different conversations to really equip you with everything you need to go global. And you can also pitch your business, have a chance to win at all of the regional events that we have, and for a grand prize of $25,000 with $100K in in-kind support. So looking forward to seeing many of you in the fall. Thank you again to our wonderful panelists, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
you. Bye-bye.